All right. So today I will talk about the hydrothermal friction experiments on simulated basaltic fault gouge and the implications for megathrust earthquake. And this work is collaboration with Andre Niemeyer and Chris Spires in Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and also Nikki and Asuka from Japan. And the content of today's talk is already published in JJR Earth this year. So if you are interested in this talk, please refer to it. So the primary focus of my study is earthquakes in subduction zones. As you know, there are a lot of huge megathrust earthquakes in subduction zones, and they cause intense ground shaking and tsunamis that killed a lot of people. And my target area is the Nankai Trough, which locates at the southwest part of Japan, and there are a lot of huge earthquakes, which are recorded in, for example, historical documents or geological records. The earthquake intervals of such a large earthquake in the Nankai Trough is around 100 to 450 years, and thanks to a dense observation network, we observe a lot of slow earthquakes in the shallow part of the large earthquake or the deeper part, down deep of the large earthquake area. So this is the typical cross section in the Nankai Trough, and there is a seismogenic zone at the depth range of from here to here, which corresponds to the temperature range between 150 degree to 300 degree. And yeah, this is often called the seismogenic zone. And we observe shallow, slow earthquakes here, and also deep, slow earthquakes, like slow sleep event or tremor, and yeah, tremor. Okay, so the research question is, how does the plate boundary fault slip under the conditions of the seismogenic zone? So to understand this, we want to know the frictional properties. So as you know, the earthquake is stick slip behavior, and that is the slip which is characterized by unstable and spontaneous acceleration of the slip. So this is the very old paper by Brace and Barry, which shows this jaggy behavior of the slip. And yeah, okay. So this paper says the stick slip behavior is the kind of laboratory earthquake, and later on the development of rate and state dependent friction law says that the velocity dependence of friction coefficient, which is often described by the parameter a minus b, is a key for the stick slip behavior. The rate and state friction law is described with this equation, and if the a minus b is negative, then stick slip behavior is possible when a certain acid condition is met. So in many simulation work, many works refer to this paper, and which used granitic rocks and showing the transitions in a minus b from positive to negative at around 100 to 150 degree, and the transition from negative to positive around 300 degree or 400 degree. And this matches the seismogenic zone temperature conditions. So this curve is often used to characterize the fault behavior in a strike slip fault, which cuts the upper crust. So this is the depth range, which is around from 5 kilometer to 25, which is the depth range of negative A minus B for granitic rocks. But when we considered the subduction zone conditions, the material is not a granitic rock. So this is an idealized trench section, which shows showing the typical incoming materials in subduction zone, and which is called ocean floor stratigraphy. In the ocean floor stratigraphy, we have sandstone or mudstone, and we have sometimes volcanic ash layers, and at the bottom, we can see oceanic crust material, which is basalt. And so the material is not granitic rock, but sandstone, mudstone, or volcanic ash, or basalt. And we consider the structure of the seismogenic zone. From seismological studies, we those studies infer that the structure at the seismogenic zone is characterized by the décollement step down and underplating. So this is the left panel is the seismological structure at the Sagami Trough, which is near the Tokyo in Japan, and the right panel is the structure of the Nankai Trough. So both studies shows the underplating structure around the depths of 10 kilometers or something. And when we think in the geological studies, we can also see the evidence of such décollement step down or underplating. This is the map of the Mugi Melange, which is the southwest part of which is accretionary prison of located in the southwestern part of Japan, and we can see 6 units of layers, which we can see basaltic layer repeatedly. This structure is interpolated by this this kind of geological structure, and we can see a repetition of basaltic layers, which is formed by this kind of décollement step down structure. So, and this is the picture of the sampling area, which I used, which I took the sample for friction experiments. And here you can see a basalt here, and this is the sedimentary layer, and this is the paleo plate boundary shear zone. So like the area around here or here. So this structure clearly means that the plate boundary fault was developing within the oceanic crust. And actually, we can observe this kind of basaltic layers in on accretion complexes worldwide, not only in Japan but also the Europe, the England, or the USA or South America. So this is the I already showed the research question. How does the fault slip behavior in subduction? How does the plate boundary fault slip in the conditions of the seismogenic zone? But we can say that the research question can be extended to what are roles of the basaltic material in seismogenesis. Okay. So to understand the frictional behavior of the basalt, I took the sample, which represents the basaltic material in the seismogenic zone. So this is the same map which I already showed to you, and I collect the basaltic materials from here, which which experience the temperature range of around 150 to 200 degree and pore pressure condition of 100 MPa, and yeah, 100 MPa. So this is the picture of the sample. So you can observe chloride here, which is formed by the alteration process of the glass. And you can see fine grains of albite here. This is the close-up view here. And okay, so the chloride and fine grain albite are formed by the alteration of mid-ocean rich basalt. So um, this alteration process will be very important factor for the for controlling frictional behavior. I will talk about this later. So I use this sample and crush and make a simulated both gouge and put the sample into this shear apparatus at Utrecht University, and then I did friction experiments under 100 to 550 degree and pore pressure condition of 50 to 200 MPa, and under the effective universal condition of 30 to 100 MPa, and velocity condition of 1 to 100 microns per second. So this is the result of the friction experiments under 100 to 550 degree, and you can observe the six-leaf behavior at around 400 degree or 450 degree, like here. So this is the result. The friction coefficient is around 0.6, but we can observe low friction coefficient at high temperature and under low velocity conditions. And this is the map of the frictional instability, which is A minus B, as functions of velocity and temperature. So the positive A minus B, which is velocity strengthening, can be observed at low temperature and high velocity conditions, as well as at high temperature and low velocity conditions. And in other velocity temperature conditions, we observe negative A minus B here. And at high temperature and low velocity conditions, we observe the crepe-like behavior like this one, which shows very strong positive A minus B. And this is the deformation microstructures from 3 regimes. So I additionally did 3 experiments under 3 temperature and velocity conditions written here. So you can see this is the regime A, which is velocity strengthening under high velocity and low temperature conditions. And the gouge structure is porous, and there are a lot of cataclastic deformation here. But under high temperature and low velocity conditions, we observe very dense shear band and also viscous deformation. Okay, so here I will talk about the deformation macro mechanisms that govern the frictional behavior. So we observe the transition from positive to negative and negative to positive transitions in A minus B with increasing temperature and decreasing velocity. And this pattern is really looking like the microphysical model described by balance between dilatant and granular flow and compaction creep of grains, which is often called CNS model or Chen-Niemeyer spires model. And the dilatant granular flow is activated especially for high velocity or low temperature conditions, and compaction creep behavior dominates at high temperature or low velocity conditions, which is regime B and C, which shows velocity weakening and strengthening respectively. And this model predicts that the porosity gets high when the velocity is high or temperature is low, whereas the velocity gets low when temperature is high and velocity is low. And this is the shear strength with as a function of velocity at constant temperature. So when the velocity is very low, the shear strength increases velocity with velocity because the shear deformation is controlled by the creep behavior, uh, uh, which is governed by the creep behavior. But at certain velocity conditions, the shear strength negatively depend on velocity because of the initiation of dilatant granular flow. And when the velocity is high enough to deactivate the creep behavior, then the velocity strengthening re-emerges and porosity gets high, like here. And this behavior can be also described with as a function of temperature. And at high temperature, the okay, so the gradient of this curve is similar to the A minus B. So this is the shear strength as a function of velocity, and this is the A minus B as a function of temperature. So at high temperature condition, the regime C is uh, the dominant regime, so that the A minus B is positive, and at the intermediate temperature conditions, the velocity weakening behavior is dominant here, but still the compaction creep is activated. And in regime A, sorry, at low temperature conditions, compaction creep is not activated, and the velocity strengthening behavior occurs uh, due to the dilatant granular flow. So this transition is observed in my experimental results. The positive M minus B at high velocity and low temperature conditions, as well as the high temperature and low velocity conditions. And the microstructure charts are also consistent with the model prediction, which is we observed the porous gouge structure in um, low temperature and high velocity conditions, but the dense gouge structure can be observed at high temperature and low velocity conditions. So the key point is the compaction creep behavior, which is important, which is important to explain the transition from region B to C, the velocity weakening to strengthening behavior at around 400 degree. So the microstructure observation shows that the compaction creep behavior was accommodated by albite rather than Klein corrections. So the material of the basaltic material, the main in basalt, the main mineral species are albite and Klein corrections. And when we compare the two materials, albite grain has round shape and interconnecting with each other, but the Klein correction, which is break grains here, are angular and they have cataclastically fragmented. And this is the structure under 400 degree and 400 degree. But when we increase the temperature to 550 degree, the we observe the indentation of Klein correction grains into albite aggregates. And we can see isolated pores, which is a clear evidence for the albite interconnections of albite grains. And in other area, we observe unclear grain boundaries between albite grains. So this is the summary of the experimental results. And the experiments and microstructural observations suggest that the altered basalt can be frictionally unstable at a wide temperature range of 100 to 450 degree, and frictional behavior and microstructures are consistent with a microphysical model described by the balance between shear-induced dilatant granular flow and combustion creep of grains. And albite grains are the host of combustion creep and contribute to velocity weakening. So here I would like to discuss on the implication for earthquakes in subduction zones. So compared to other material, altered oceanic crust has a high friction coefficient than sedimentary rock. So the greenish run is the result of altered oceanic crust, and orange results are the friction coefficient of rich shale gouge. And the brittle ductile tension may be around 300 degree to 350 degree, which is which corresponds to the emergence of quartz after the decomposition of climate paraxin. And regarding the A-B, the altered oceanic crust is frictionally more unstable, which means more negative compared to sedimentary rocks. And the temperature range with negative A-B covers the seismogenic zone depth. So um, the basalt can nucleate an earthquake because the A-B for the altered basalt is negative, but its friction coefficient is higher than the sediment. So, but the seismological observations or geological observations suggest that the plate pattern fault develops within the oceanic crust. So we want to deform a strong material, and we want to know how this kind of structure was formed. And this is the discussion part, and I think that the heterogeneity may be a key. And I want to propose two possibilities of heterogeneity. First is the hydrological heterogeneity. So we have two materials here, the sediment and oceanic crust, and there is a gap in friction coefficient between two materials. So we can change the apparent friction coefficient or apparent shear strength by changing the pore pressure. And okay, so the necessary pore pressure change to make basalt apparently weaker than the sediment is around 6.9 to around 20 MPa at the depth condition of 10 kilometer. And so this is not much high pore pressure actually. And there is a fluid source in basalt, which is the dehydration of saponite to chloride. This is the smectite, which is saponite content in the basaltic material. And saponite dehydration continues up to 300 degree. So the oceanic crust can be a fluid source within the seismogenic zone, and due to the sedimentary rock, in the permeability of sedimentary rock is generally low. The fluid generated within the oceanic crust is hampered by the overlying impermeable sedimentary rocks. This situation can sustain higher pore pressure condition than the sedimentary rock, and that situation consequently can make the oceanic crust apparently weaker than the sedimentary rock. So another possibility is the structural heterogeneity. Actually, this part is not discussed in paper, but I think this part may be important. So the geological observations suggest that the deformation of sediment is distributed, but the deformation in basalt is relatively localized. So this is a geological interpretation. And this situation can concentrate the stress on stronger material under under distributed deformation within the weak sedimentary layer. So this is the paper by John Bedford, who talked maybe 2 times before in this webinar, which shows the deformation within weak materials leads to stress concentration on patches on strong material. Corresponding to the weak material corresponds to sediment, and strong material corresponds to outer basalt in the case of this study. So this situation will make the system macroscopically seismogenic. All right, so those kind of heterogeneity will make the will make the nucleation in basaltic layer possible under the seismogenic zone conditions. Okay, so lastly, I would like to talk about the chemical process behind earthquake, which I think the most important, most interesting part of this paper. So I already showed that the albite pressure sorption creep induced the velocity weakening behavior of outer basalt. This is the previous slide here. So albite is formed by the chemical reaction between seawater and fresh basalt. This is the anorthite, which is present at the present sea floor. And this anorthite turns into albite through the interaction with seawater. And this reaction occurs around 7 to 450 degree, which is shallower process than the seismogenic zone. So this chemical reactions occur before the material go down to the seismogenic zone. And this reaction accompanies grain size reduction to around 10 microns. So you can see the albite grains are generally small and small compared to the anorthite grains. You can see the scale bar here. And in general, fine grains are easy to accommodate pressure solution creep. So this chemical reaction makes the material more prone to accommodate creep behavior. That means the chemical reaction promotes the frictional instability and the temperature range of negative A minus B. These chemical reactions decrease the temperature range where the negative A minus B is observed to more lower temperature conditions. All right, so this is the summary of my talk. The outer basalt shows unstable frictional behavior under a wide temperature range of hydrothermal conditions. And production of fine-grained albite during subduction promotes the frictional instability via pressure solution creep. And subducting oceanic crust may serve as a source of nucleating megathrust earthquake in subduction zones.